During high school, I always was a fairly average student. Decent grade, yes, but also pretty lazy, slacking off my homework and gaming a lot after school. However, once I started university, I desperately wanted to change something, to finally stop wasting my potential and to avoid missing out on future opportunities. Yet, I also didn't want to become the student that always studies and misses out on what could have been the time of his life. So I watched course after course after course on how to study smarter and how to study more efficiently, all until I discovered a 3-step process that turned everything around and resulted in me finishing top 5% at my university, but also only studying around 3 to 4 hours a day and having an incredible time. But before talking about what the process is and how it can help you as well, we first have to talk about the 2 crucial decisions that I made before I even started to study. So right after high school, where I finished with a grade of 2.4, which is the exact average of the year, I was pretty unsure what program I wanted to study, what to enroll for. So I worked for 3 months in a factory that produced, it's called Flammkuchen. It's basically German pizza. That's the best way to describe it, I guess. And with that money I earned, booked a flight to Bangkok. And I traveled for around 5 to 6 months around Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Singapore, Indonesia, and had such an incredible time. But in the process, also became more self-determined, more self-assured, which all helped me once I came back to be super motivated to start in university, but also have the determination and the willpower to study consistently and show up every day. And maybe you're already studying and you didn't travel. I think still, even after your bachelor's, after your master, or even if you started working, at some point to break away for 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 months, I think it's one of the best decisions you can do for your memories, for your development. At least for me, it was such an incredible decision that I've made. However, even more crucial was the second decision I made, because I already mentioned it earlier, but during high school, I didn't study 3 to 4 hours a day like I did later in university, but I played around 3 to 4 hours of PlayStation every single day. And maybe your biggest vice is something different. It could be sugar or your phone or excessive drinking, whatever it might be, because right after coming home from Thailand, I made a back in the time difficult but backwards looking incredible decision to sell my PlayStation. And you know the common advice to get rid of your distractions and eliminate everything that could hold you back from your performance. But I don't buy it. I think the goal still is to perform while having an incredible time. And I think just controlling your biggest enemy was, at least for me personally, the best decision I made before starting university. Which brings us to the study framework that changed everything. And like I mentioned, when I started university, I digged into every course, every book, every YouTube video I could find on how to study smarter and more efficiently. But I became a bit overwhelmed. Active recall, spaced repetition, Anki flashcards, the Pomodoro cycle, the Eisenhower matrix. There were so many things to watch out for and try and adapt, all until I tried to cluster everything and realized that it all depends on this 3-step equation that you can use regardless of what university you might enroll in, and which you can also adapt on your unique study style, because I think you're going to learn completely different than I do. And the first element of determining how well you study is the time you learn. And because I knew that I was aiming to study around 3 to 4 hours, maybe a bit more during exam period, the most crucial element, and that's the same like going to the gym, is not how hard you work out or how much you study, but it is how consistent you show up to the gym or how consistently you show up every day. And there are a lot of different things and habit building techniques, but for me personally, the one main thing that helped me to consistently study is this jar of marbles. And this is heavily inspired by the author called James Clear in the book Atomic Habits, where he shared a story where a sales guy moved, in this case, one marble, and in his case, one paperclip from one glass to the other whenever he made a sales call. And he was only allowed to stop working when all his paperclips were from one glass to the other glass. And in my case, I did something very similar. in a way that every time I finished a Pomodoro cycle, which basically is a working block of around 25 minutes typically with a 5-minute break, every time after I moved a marble from the left glass to the right glass. But every time I was crazy efficient, I was allowed to move. I was allowed to move 3 marbles. If I was efficient, but I could have done better, I moved 2 marbles. And whenever I finished and wasn't really efficient, I only moved 1 marble from this glass to the next. And also, what I put in there were my cornerstone habits. So you might wonder what are like the big marbles or or this blue marble. But for instance, when I meditated, I moved it over. When I did exercise, I moved it over. And when I read like 2 or 3 pages in the book, I also moved it over. And whenever I moved all the marbles from left to right, the day was finished and I could do whatever I liked. However, even though consistency and the time you work is incredibly important, what's even more important is the second part, which is your efficiency and the speed with which you learn. And the most important building block, at least for me, was your environment. That's why I went to the library where all the people who were around me, they were studying, which already motivated me. But in the library, I didn't have anything that could possibly distract me. And the scientific reason for this is that whenever you are distracted or you're multitasking, it on average takes you around 20 minutes to get back into the flow state where you are up to 300 to 400 times more efficient. And that's why even in the breaks, I took them very seriously and I didn't check my phone, but I got some fresh water, I moved, I chatted with some friends or got some fresh air. And because of this, when I came back, within sometimes seconds, I was right back in the flow state. And I also stopped after 3 and 4 hours, which gave me the energy on the next day to show up and be super deep in the zone and very efficient. However, all of this would be worth nothing if right after studying 3 to 4 hours consistently, super efficient, if you then forget most of the stuff you learned. And some people are blessed with a photographic memory. I'm not. And that's why there were 2 main things that really helped me to memorize most of the stuff that I learned. The first of them was note-taking. So whenever there was a lecture or I was reading a textbook, I took some handwritten notes, especially because I read some studies that apparently writing with your hand helps you to remember the stuff much better than typing on a PC. And the second main thing that really helped me to remember the stuff was how I approached the learning. So whenever there was a new course, the first thing I tried to do was just to understand the bigger picture of what the course is all about. So I watched some YouTube breakdown videos, I read the final summary of the book, I looked at the outline, just to understand what am I actually learning, which helped me to put the pieces at the right place. And then throughout the course, so throughout the semester, I always stayed slightly ahead or sometimes just consistently what was happening in the week. And I really made sure to read. And whenever I didn't understand why this is like that or how it works, I always went back and tried to understand the bigger picture. Then I typically aimed to around 10 days before the exam, sometimes it was just a week, I finished all the material and made a summary of all my summaries of all my handwritten notes I did previously. And then in the final week, just had time to prepare for the exams, go over some questions, and through the process, remember stuff better, but also I felt like it was very efficient and it made everything very clear. And if you also want to make sure that you study in the most efficient and best possible way possible, then you can watch this video next, where I discovered a system for ChatGPT that helped me to learn photography in South Africa in only 7 days. Now you can also apply to any skill that you learn, but also to any course that you might have come across during your university. Thank you for watching and hopefully this helps.